Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that could hit your wallet, your grocery bill, and even your retirement account, but it's not being talked about in simple terms. A federal appeals court has just ruled that most of President Donald Trump's tariffs may actually be illegal. Yes, you heard me right. Illegal. Now, before you think this means prices are suddenly going to drop, hold on. The tariffs are still in place for now, but the Supreme Court is about to weigh in, and that decision could reshape trade, politics, and the U.S. economy for years to come. So, why does this matter to you? Because these tariffs didn't just hit a few obscure industries, they've affected nearly everything we buy. Cars, phones, electronics, appliances, groceries, you name it. If you've noticed life getting more expensive, tariffs are one of the hidden reasons. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand what's happening in Washington, but also how this could impact your daily life and what you can do to prepare. And real quick, before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments, do you think tariffs are good for America, protecting jobs and industries? Or do you feel like they've only made things more expensive? I want to hear your perspective. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss important updates like this one. What are tariffs and why do they matter? Let's start simple. A tariff is basically a tax on imported goods. If a company brings steel from China, cars from Japan, or electronics from Europe, they have to pay extra fees to the U.S. government. Those costs almost always get passed down to us, the consumers. So whether you're buying a new car, upgrading your kitchen appliances, or even just stocking up on groceries, tariffs can quietly push your bills higher. During Trump's presidency, tariffs became his go-to weapon. He argued that other countries had been ripping off the U.S. for decades, and tariffs were the tool to finally level the playing field. The idea was simple: make imports more expensive so American companies could compete and create jobs at home. At first, tariffs were targeted, 10% here, 20% there. But over time, they expanded to cover nearly 70% of all imports coming into the United States. That meant almost everything we buy had some kind of extra tax baked into the price tag. The court ruling that changed everything, fast forward to late August. A federal appeals court looked at the legal basis Trump used for these tariffs, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. The court's conclusion? That law doesn't give presidents the power to impose tariffs. Only Congress can do that. In other words, the court said Trump overstepped his authority. However, instead of immediately removing the tariffs, the judges hit pause until October 14th, giving the administration a chance to appeal to the Supreme Court. So right now, the tariffs are still in place, but their future hangs in the balance. Trump's response, now you know Trump, he didn't exactly take this quietly. He blasted the court as partisan, warned that removing tariffs would turn America into a third world country, and even blamed the stock market's recent dips on the ruling. According to him, businesses need these tariffs to survive and keep the economy strong. Whether you agree or disagree, it's clear this is shaping up to be one of the most important Supreme Court cases in years, because it's not just about money, it's about presidential power. Why tariffs hit your wallet? Let's talk dollars and cents. In 2025 alone, the government has collected more than $150 billion in tariff revenue. On the surface, that sounds like a win. More money for the government, right? But here's the problem. Tariffs function like a hidden tax. Small businesses that depend on imports have seen their costs skyrocket. A furniture maker who imports wood or fabrics, a car dealership buying foreign vehicles, or a grocery chain that relies on produce from abroad, they all pay more. And when businesses pay more, they raise prices. That's why your grocery cart, your electronics, and even construction materials cost more today than a few years ago. Critics argue this slows down the economy, discourages innovation, and leaves consumers footing the bill. Trump's argument: leverage, not just revenue. Supporters of tariffs see things differently. They argue tariffs are about leverage, not just money. The U.S., they say, has been taken advantage of by trading partners for decades. Tariffs are a way to bring countries to the negotiating table. And to be fair, there have been cases where it worked. With Japan and the UK, for example, tariffs were paused or reduced in exchange for better trade deals. From that perspective, tariffs are like a bargaining chip. The US flexes its muscle, and other countries back down. What if the Supreme Court strikes them down? Here's where things get interesting. If the Supreme Court rules against Trump and says the tariffs were never legal, two big things could happen. Refunds. Importers might be able to claim refunds for billions of dollars they already paid. Imagine billions flowing back into companies' pockets, money that could be reinvested or even lower prices for consumers. Chaos in trade deals. Countries that negotiated under tariff pressure, like the EU or Japan, could demand new deals or even walk away entirely. Businesses that spent years adjusting supply chains around tariffs would suddenly face a whole new reality. But it's not all good news. The Justice Department has warned that refunding billions could put enormous stress on the federal budget. That could ripple into public programs, debt payments, and even Social Security funding. What if the court sides with Trump? On the other hand, if the Supreme Court upholds Trump's tariffs, it essentially expands presidential power. It would set a precedent that future presidents, Republican or Democrat, could use similar powers for other agendas. Imagine tariffs or restrictions not just on trade, but on climate, technology, or even digital platforms. In that case, tariffs stay in place, the government keeps collecting revenue, and businesses continue to adjust. But for everyday Americans, it likely means prices remain high, at least in the short term. What does this mean for you right now? That's the big question. In the short term, not much will change until the Supreme Court makes its decision. Prices on cars, electronics, and groceries are unlikely to drop overnight. But if the tariffs get struck down and refunds begin, we could see some relief in specific industries, like construction, cars, or electronics. Don't expect your weekly grocery bill to be cut in half, but a new phone, a new car, or even building materials could get cheaper. In the long term, though, this case is about more than prices. It's about who controls trade policy, the president or Congress. That decision could shape U.S. economic strategy for decades. The global ripple effect. And let's not forget, the world is watching. If U.S. tariffs get struck down, it might encourage other countries to challenge American policies or retaliate with tariffs of their own. Global trade is like a giant Jenga tower. Pull one piece out and the whole thing wobbles. That uncertainty is bad for markets, businesses, and for anyone trying to plan their household budget. Politics and public opinion. Politically, this case couldn't come at a more important time. With another election always around the corner, expect both sides to use this as ammunition. Supporters will say tariffs protect American jobs and independence. Critics will argue tariffs are government overreach and an unfair burden on working families. And regular Americans, people like us, are left in the middle, just trying to figure out what it means for our bills and savings. What you can do so. What should you do with all this information? Stay calm. Even if the Supreme Court takes the case, decisions take time. Prices won't change overnight. Stay informed. Pay attention to industries you rely on. If you're thinking about buying a car, a major appliance, or electronics, this ruling could affect your timing. Stay flexible. Build some wiggle room into your budget. Global trade disputes have a way of causing unexpected ripples. Tariffs may sound like a distant policy issue, but they touch everything from your grocery bill to your retirement investments. This Supreme Court case is not just about Trump. It's about the balance of power in the U.S. government and the future of trade policy. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think tariffs have protected American jobs, or do you feel they've only made life more expensive? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them, and your perspective helps shape these conversations. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Staying informed is one of the best ways to protect your money, and I'll be here every step of the way to help you understand what's happening in Washington and how it impacts your daily life. Because let's be honest, the more we understand, the stronger we all are when it comes to protecting our financial future.